can take out our highlighter, and the first thing that we're going to highlight here on the bottom of page 4 is this idea of a general term, Tn. And we talked about it a little bit in the first couple of days. It's like finding a formula. So if you had 3, 7, 11, 15, we notice that these are all adding 4, adding 4, adding 4, adding 4, adding 4, and so on, and it keeps going. So one of the patterns that we recognized early on is that if you wanted to think about term 4, well, term 4 is starting with the very first one, and you've added 4 1, 2, 3 times. So we could write that out as a formula that term 4 is 15 would equal the 3 that you started with, and then you added 4 3 times, so it's 4 times 3. And then we started noticing a pattern, so if we went to the general term, it again would start with 3, because that was your first one, and then you add 4, but you always add 4 one less than whichever one you're finding. So if I wanted to find like the 23, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 23, that would be term, and remember we write our terms with a little number, so T6 means term 6. If I wanted to find term 6, I would have to add, so term 6 would be 3 plus, you would add the 4, 6 minus 1, 5 times. And you would get 23. We also looked at sort of a shortcut way of finding this equation, where if you're adding 4, there's going to be 4 times something in the formula. And then if I use the sixth one, right, term 6 is supposed to be 23. If I do 4 times 6, you see that you get 24. What would make it work to make 23 would be subtracting 1. And if I do that for one of them, I could double check it, like check term 4. Term 4 is supposed to be 15. Does this work? For term 4, if I do 4 times 4 minus 1, do I get 15? Yes. So this general formula here and this general formula here are sort of two different ways of seeing the formula. And they both work. In fact, if you would do the math and distribute your 4 here and then combine your like terms, you'd see that those two equations are exactly the same. Okay? The first one, which is not, like I'll say it's like the unsimplified version. A lot of people use that one more because it's on your formula sheet. The second one is not on your formula sheet, but it's already simplified, which is sometimes nice to use. You can choose whichever way you like best. But the first one will be on our formula sheet. And some language that's used here. Okay? The general term, it's called the general term because it can find any term you want. Term 7, term 9, it's like a formula. Okay? The 3 was our first term. The 4 was our common difference. So then the textbook says we can take this and make a general rule that will be on your formula sheet. And that general rule looks like this. I'll put a green box around it. You have your general term is always your first term plus the common difference, and then you always multiply by n minus 1 because you're adding your common difference 1 less than every term. I'll get you a formula sheet probably tomorrow, and this is the first formula that's on your formula sheet. So does it make sense that people use that one the most because it's on your formula sheet? But I'll still show you the other shortcut method as well, because some of you might like that just as well. So what's going to happen, again, with all the examples, we will do the one off to the side. You can always read the example in the textbook on your own as well. So we have an arithmetic sequence, 3, 10, 17, 24, and because it's arithmetic, we're always adding the same thing. And it's not hard to figure out that your common difference is 7. Now we can either make the formula using that 7. So the shortcut would say, I know it's going to be 7n, and if I look at the third one, 17, 7 times 3 is 21. To make 17, I'd have to subtract 4. Does it work for term 1? 7 times 1 is 7, minus 4, 3. Yes. So, or you can look at your formula sheet and from your formula sheet and from that formula at the top of the page, you have this, the general term, and then you can just plug in the things as you know them. So a lot of people like the formula sheet because it's a little bit less thinking, right? You're just plugging things in. What's term 1? It's 3. What's the common difference? It's 7. And then you have the formula that way as well. If you wanted to find term 15, you would plug in 15 into either one of these. And when we find term 15, we replace the n with the 15 because we're finding the 15th term. They probably expect you to know up to your 7 times table, but probably 15 would be too big, so this would be on a calculator section of a quiz. Although 7 times 15 is not too bad, it's 105. So this would be 105 minus 4, and you would get 101. If you did it this way, term 15 would equal 3 plus 7 times 14. 7 times 14 is 98. And you get 101 that way as well. So it doesn't matter which version of the formula you use. They both will give you the right answer. As long as we do our order of operations, right? Like you multiply, here you'd have to do the 15 minus 1 to get 14 first, 40 multiplied by 7. So we still need to know all of our order of operations. So it's very helpful that we get our formula either in this form or this form, because then we can find the 15th term. Or you can do the long-winded, like you would get full marks on your quiz, right? Some of you said at that activity you did, how did you find term 15? Well, you just kept going. Oh my goodness. And hope that you don't make a mistake along the way. And then you keep going, and then you count. Am I done? 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, 10. I still have to keep going. And then you get to the 15th one, and you find it, and you circle it. And that would be right as well. Hopefully you start to see that by developing a formula, you can find a lot of things quick. But they wouldn't mark it wrong. It's a valid strategy, just not the most efficient strategy. And efficiency is not seen as super important in grade 11, because if you don't finish your test on time, you can have the 10-minute break. And if you're still not done a test on time after that, I will give you a note to be late for your next class. And unless, does anyone have Mr. McWilliam right after this class? Does he get mad when I keep him asking? He's like, math test again. You're always missing my English class. You're like, you just tell us, does anyone have Mr. McWilliam before? You just tell stories anyways, right? It's not like you're really learning and you're just missing a story. So he gets mad, but it's like, yeah, but if you were actually teaching something, that would be different. See, that's where the mute button is important. Okay. All right. Part B. So, in Part B, they say you have a term that has 220. You just don't know which one. So, when you see this part here, which term, that's saying you have to find n. So one of these things about these questions that you're going to develop is by reading the questions understanding what it is that they want to find. If I find n, and n is 32, then I know it's term 32. That's the one I want to find. So I take my formula, and it doesn't matter which one I use. I'm gonna just take the shortcut one because it's already simplified. So here's my formula. And I want to find n. And this is where it's a little bit interesting because there's an n here and there's an n there. There's an n in two places in this question. But even though we don't know n, we do know, we have to remember that this thing is one thing. Tn is any term, and we know that there's some term that's 220. So that even though we don't know what n is, we know that this Tn is 220. So I don't know which one it is, but I know it's 220, and now I've created an equation where I can solve for n. So you're solving equations, right? What would you do here? You'd probably add 4 to both sides. Now in grade 11, in grade 9 and grade 10, your teachers probably would have done this, okay? In grade 11, I won't do that blue part anymore. I'll just be like, right away, go to 224. Are you okay with that? Because I'll still say we add 4 to both sides. If you like to write the plus 4 on both sides, you still can. That's fine. But again, we're sort of, as we're moving along, in math, we're becoming a little bit more efficient. Now you divide both sides by 7. So again, no problem if you do this. But if you just wrote n equals, and it's going to be, I said 32. That was just a random, I just picked a random number. I mean, I haven't done this question for like 6 months. So maybe my brain, I don't know. But that was,
Good job.
I should maybe buy a lottery ticket. Or, you know what, my luck is probably all, I've used it all. I'm gonna have an unlucky day for the rest of the day because I just used it on something useless, like figuring out it's 32. So the answer is, it is term 32. Now, once we've done a question like this, what I'm going to do right afterwards is, and I'll get you, I'd say maybe write it right above the question. Write 6, 15, and 18. And I put a little star beside 18 because it's a little bit of a challenge question. And then I'm going to get you to turn to page 8, because that's where the homework is. So your homework for a lesson is always at the end of the lesson. Starts on page 8. And I'll get you to circle question 6, circle question 15, and circle question 18. So if you go to page 8, you can circle question 6.
6, 15, 18.
6, 15, and 18. You can circle the whole question, or you can just circle the number. It's up to you.
No, that's the whole
You're going to do the whole question.
Yeet.
So what's going to happen is, I'm sometimes going to give you some time in class, right after an example, to be like, okay, you saw an example, now can you do it a little bit on your own? Okay? But I won't give you enough time that you will get 6, 15, and 18 all done. So then later, you're going to go home and say, I have some math homework. When you turn to the exercises, the questions will already be circled. And if you haven't written anything, that tells you you still need to do that question. Yes?
Just a question, like, if on like quizzes and stuff, would it matter if we wrote T32 or like N equals 32? Would it be the same?
If you circled this, I'd give you full marks. But it did say which term, so it didn't say what's n. It said which term, so it does show a little bit more understanding that I know that it means term 32 when I solve for n. Okay.